So I want to welcome Jean Carr, the Executive Director and CIO of the ERFC. Ms. Carr, thank you so much for joining us tonight, and I will let you introduce the others at the table who have joined us. Thank you all for being here, and I believe you have a presentation for us, after which we'll have board member questions. But with that, I will turn it over to Ms. Carr. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Evans. I'm covering today the annual State of ERFC presentation. We've given this presentation to the school board for the last 10 years, and so many of you are very familiar with it. I do want to acknowledge the senior staff that helped me with this presentation. Jim Roner is to my left. He's ERFC's Deputy Executive Director. I also have Michael Lunter here, who's our Finance Coordinator, and Lisa Scott, who's ERFC's Communications Specialist. So I also want to thank the Board of Trustees for their thoughtful input during the year. We have several of our trustees present here this evening. We have Kristen Michael, our treasurer, Susan Quinn, Marty Smith, and we also have our elected trustees present, Nancy Hammerer, who is our chairperson, and also Kimberly Adams, our vice chair.
Thank you very much for joining us tonight.
So for the agenda this evening, I'm not going to go through all the slides because they're fairly self-explanatory. I will cover statistics on our membership, our trends. I will go over the financial status of the fund in terms of our funded ratio and what our investment earnings have been. And I will cover our historical administrative expenses, closing with our accomplishments during the current, the fiscal year that just ended, and then what initiatives we have planned for the upcoming fiscal year. So just as a reminder, I know we did go over some of this information at the May 12th work session, but our benefit structure is shown on slide 3. We are a supplemental system to the Virginia retirement system, and our system is funded by investment earnings, employee contributions, and employer contributions. So under the fiscal year that we just started, the employees are putting in 3% into the system. That's unchanged from last year. The employer contribution rate also stayed unchanged at 5.6% of payroll. FCPS put $75 million into the system last calendar year. The employees contributed $41 million. So it definitely is a system that's supported by both the employer and the employee. But over the last 10 years, investment income has actually produced most of the revenue for the system, making up about 54% of the total revenue. There are 2 plans within ERFC, the legacy system, which was created in 1973. It's not that common of a design anymore. It's called an offset plan, so we actually calculate what the Virginia retirement system benefit is and use that as an offset in the benefit calculation for us. It's a very complicated plan to administer, so this school board back in 2001 decided to institute a new plan. Very simple design, very streamlined. It's a standalone plan, and it actually is much more equitable for those teachers that join FCPS as a second career or later in their career. It is simpler, though. There is no provisions for sick leave credit, no disability provisions, no ability to purchase service credit in the newer ERFC 2001 plan. Keep in mind, too, as we went over at May 12th, that the employees are putting 3% into this plan. There's also a mandatory 5% contribution to the Virginia retirement system. So as a minimum, employees are contributing 8% of salary to these 2 retirement systems. On slide 4, we show our current membership. So we have 75% of our members now are in this newer plan. So this is 15 years later, and you have heard us talk in our May 12th presentation, and you will hear that again tonight, that it does take a long time when you're instituting a new plan for that to become the predominant plan. And still at this point, 15 years later, we only have 6% of our retirees in the newer ERFC 2001 plan. On slide 5, we show the difference in demographics between the 2 plans. So our average member in the legacy plan is now 53 with 19 years of service. this plan, the ideal sweet spot to retire in this plan and why it was created was that you could retire at age 55 with 25 years of service. So the 5,000 members, most of them that are remaining in this plan are not going to be able to retire at age 55 with 25 years of service. They're retiring at later and later ages. The average member in our newer plan has much different demographics. They're age 40, they've just become vested, so when we're developing our communication programs, we have to make sure that we communicate differently to this group. In my many years of financial planning before I came here, we always thought at age 40 is when people really start paying attention to retirement, that they finally realize that they maybe should have saved some money for this event. So I think we have a good group there that we really need to address with our communications. On page 6, we show similar demographics for our retirees. The average age that people are retiring is continuing to go up and up. So back when I came here in 2005, the average age was 58, and now it's up to 62. That's almost a 4-year increase during that time. And people, you hear these rumors that people are going out at 100% of pay. Certainly not the case. The average is going out at 52% of pay. And so you can probably see the rationale for the delay in retirement. At age 62, they're eligible for Social Security. We heard on May 12th that really need a 78% replacement ratio of salary to be able to retire. So here you can see people are doing some planning that if they have 52% of salary from the Virginia retirement system and from ERFC, and then you add Social Security on to it at 24%, then they are up to about that 78% recommended replacement ratio that we talked about on May 12th. The average retiree in ERFC 2001, the newer plan, certainly much older and exiting with a lot less service. These are primarily second career individuals. On slide 9, we show again that it takes a long time for a new plan to become the dominant plan. It wasn't until 2007 that we actually had more people in ERFC 2001 than we had in the legacy plan. Now we're up to 75%. And we do have a continuing growth in our membership, so that is good for a defined benefit plan to have those continuing new employees come in. So we are up 1% in our numbers in 2015 from 2014. Retirements are shown on page 10. We have been fairly stable in our number of retirements after the financial downturn. We had retirements of 622 last year. We're expecting around, when we get final numbers this fiscal year, FY 2016, it will be around 650. And we just finished processing 400 applications for July 1 retirements of 400 teachers retiring. On slide 11, we show the benefits that we pay out on an annual basis. We paid out $161 million. These are ERFC benefits. And many of these dollars do stay in the Commonwealth of Virginia, 72% of those dollars, and a hefty portion, 45%, remain in Fairfax County, so our employees are able to retire within the county. That doesn't include the VRS benefit, which we estimated around $139 million. So total revenue received by retirees, Fairfax County, $211 million. We have recently completed an economic impact study, and those pension benefits supported an additional $249 million in economic activity, meaning those retirees went out and spent those dollars at businesses. Their employees were able to multiply that. So almost $500 million spent by our retirees in Fairfax County. On page 13, we show our investment returns, and these are for the period ending March 31st. We're just getting in preliminary numbers for the year ending, for the fiscal year ending June 30th. So this looks at the 1, 3, 5, 7, 10-year period ending in March. We're trying to do three things. We're trying to exceed our actual earnings rate assumption. The Board of Trustees did lower that required rate from 7.5 to 7.25 last year. So the goal that we have in that area is to exceed 7.25 annually. We are conservative on that measure. There were two surveys that have come out recently, the R.B. Coons survey and the 2015 National Conference on Public Employee Retirement Survey, which shows the median fund is at 7.5%. So we are below that median fund. We also tried to outperform a benchmark. And you can see what our benchmark is at the upper right-hand side of the slide. The board has put together a very diversified portfolio. We do have components that are represented by large cap equities, small cap equities, international, emerging markets, private equity. So the board has really worked diligently to reduce investment risk as much as possible. And the third goal is to perform as well as our peers. So we use a peer universe that's supplied by our investment consultant. It has 276 funds in it, 82 of which are around our size, in excess of $1 billion. So you can see here how we performed against these two benchmarks. We were above the benchmark for the 7 and 10-year periods. We also met the 7.25 benchmark for the 7-year period. It had a good starting point, March of 2009. You probably all know that was the bottom of the market. So that's why the 7-year return looks attractive. For the 10-year period, not so much, because we have to include then in that period, 2008, 2009. We did return 5.2%, which was, of course, below our actuarial rate, but it was in the 58th percentile of our peer group. So okay results for the 10-year period. We do use both active managers and passive managers. We have had success over the long term with increased return by our active managers. They've added about 0.5% over the 7-year period, so that's about a $5.5 million increase in investment earnings because of the use of active management. We also show returns on a calendar year basis, and I think the reason we put this in is that you can see how volatile the investment returns have been during this 8-year period. When you start with calendar year 2008, the system was down 29% during that year, so that was a significant decrease in the assets of ERFC. We had subsequent years that had very positive double-digit returns. The last 2 years, though, have been more difficult, and this last fiscal year has also been a difficult year for us. So market conditions, very difficult, certainly difficult for a defined benefit plan, so you can imagine how difficult they are for an individual investor who's in a 401k account. On page 15, we show the Board of Trustees funding policy and the tactics that we use to implement that policy. We certainly are trying to mitigate unexpected increases in our employer contribution rate. We know you don't like budget surprises, and so we try as much as possible to keep that in mind. What we're trying to do is keep achieving and moving toward 100% funding. We're trying to keep our employer contribution rate stable. And to meet those goals, we do smooth asset changes over a 5-year period. So that year that we were down 29%, we didn't reflect that all at once. We did amortize that loss over a 5-year period. So that all of those measures do help us keep the contribution rate more stable. And we do communicate the contribution rate well in advance to you. We set the contribution rate for a 2-year period, and we'll be announcing what that new rate is this evening for the FY18 budgeting purposes. So on slide 16, as I mentioned, our first goal is to move toward 100% funding. We are now at 76%, and the average for public funds is around 74.1%, the latest study that we've seen. The Fairfax County retirement system is at 79%, Virginia retirement system at 69%. It does take a while for funding ratios to improve. That hit in 2009 from 88% down to 77%. It's taken a while for us to crawl our way back up out of that downturn. The latest actuarial projections that we show us going to above 80% in 2024. As I mentioned, looking at slide 17, our second goal was to stabilize our employer contribution rate. And if you look at the years from FY 2013 up until the FY 2017, it's been a fairly stable rate from 5.34% up to 5.6%. The increase from 2012 to 2013 of 1%, that was due to the board decreasing the employee rate by 1% when employees began paying the full 5% contribution to the Virginia retirement system. Unfortunately, we are recommending a rate increase for FY18 and FY19 to 6.4%. So that is a 14% increase going for that into that fiscal year. Really three major reasons why this rate increase is recommended. The board did do an actuarial experience study last year. They do these studies every 5 years to determine if their set of actuarial assumptions need to be revised in any manner. They did decide to update their mortality table. As we all know, people are living longer. Good thing for all of you, bad thing for a defined pension plan. So that was one of the changes that caused that contribution rate to go up. The second major item was the fact that we did reduce our earnings assumption from 7.5 to 7.25, so that had an impact on the contribution rate. And the third was the poor investment performance. During 2015, we had a negative 0.8% return, trying to earn 7.25, so that's a big gap between what you actually earned and what your assumption was. So that was our experience. Unfortunately, that's happening to many defined benefit plans across the country. But it's also happening to individuals that are in those defined contribution plans. They're also living longer. They have to plan that they won't run out of money in their lifetime, so they can't even use their life expectancy. When I was doing financial planning, we would add 10 years on because to be conservative so that they wouldn't outlive their money. They're also experiencing these poor investment returns, and many studies have said that individuals don't earn as much as large institutional defined benefit investors, anywhere from earning 1% to 2% less. So it's not a problem that's common to just defined benefit plans. It is for all of those savers out there that are trying to ready themselves for retirement. And then our third goal is to satisfy our accounting and actuarial standards. There are very stringent standards that we have to satisfy from both an actuarial standpoint and the assumptions that we use. And then we've recently implemented new GASB standards that make our financial reporting much more extensive. In terms of our expenses, those are shown on slide 19. We have really been able to hold the line on our administrative expenses in ERFC. One of the big things that helped us do that was the implementation of a new system in FY 2010, so that's why you see administrative expenses higher in that year. But what that new system allowed us to do was save on personnel costs. So our staff complement at 28 currently is lower than what it was back in 2010 when we had a staff complement of 31. So certainly has been a big savings for us. We have also, we try to economize as much as we can. We have eliminated our vendor for retiree payroll. We're doing all of that work in-house now. We've renegotiated our lease. We have instituted a number of paperless initiatives that are saving us printing and postage costs. So for FY16, we're expected to come in only slightly higher on administrative costs. As with the rest of FCPS, almost 80% of our budget is personnel costs, and so those costs are going up due to the merit and due to the step increases in the market scale adjustment. The light blue bar is our total investment expenses. Actually, you want your investment expenses to go up because that means your assets are going up, and those expenses are tied to assets, so those are increasing. Still remain fairly stable over this period of time. These are estimated investment expenses for FY16. Final numbers are coming in lower than what we had estimated, so that's good news. On page 20, we do compare ourselves and keep track of our administrative expenses compared to other funds our size. As I mentioned, our administrative expenses are lower than the average fund. Ours at 6.4 basis points are lower than the average fund our size at 10.8. Our investment expenses are slightly higher because of the types of investments that we use. We have instituted private equity, and the investment expenses on those tend to be higher, but we are also achieving higher returns on those investments. Real estate is another area where the investment fees are higher, but that was our best performing asset this last fiscal year, so they more than earned its return. And the final two slides really go through this strategic plan initiatives that the Board of Trustees adopted. We go through what we have accomplished what we accomplished last fiscal year and then what we're working on for the current fiscal year. The school board did request 3 years ago that we expand our communications program so that members appreciated the retirement benefits that they were receiving, so that we did initiate a school outreach program at that time. And that continues to grow and grow every year. So we visited 29 sites in last fiscal year. Those were primarily schools. It's been a program that's really been well received. We bring a retirement counselor, communications person, an IT person to help them sign up for our online service we set up in the teachers' lounge. And so the teachers really appreciate that one-on-one counseling. Our online service, we're now up to almost 21,000 members that are using that service. So they're able to log in, perform their own benefit estimate. They can see what their contributions are in the retirement account. They have a similar service with VRS. So many of these estimate performing and so forth are becoming self-service. We've also started a monthly e-newsletter where we inform our members of timely retirement topics. Another initiative that we completed last fiscal year was to develop a 2025 profile. So we did forecast out 10 years what our average member is going to look like, what their average age is, their average service, pay. And we did do the actuarial experience study, as I mentioned earlier. Applied for an IRS determination letter, determined that we still are a qualified plan, that we still have all the provisions that are required by the IRS. And we did participate in a financial controls audit. In addition to the regular financial audit, we had the auditor come in and make sure that we had all the proper controls in our systems. For this fiscal year, we're planning to expand our communication program. We're developing an ambassador program. So we've asked, in one of our e-newsletters, we asked people if they were interested in being a representative for ERFC in their workplace. So we've been very happy that we've had 13 people respond that they're willing to be an ambassador. So we have a training program set up in August. We've developed a brochure for them to be able to distribute at their schools because we have very limited staffing, so it's nice to have additional resources out there in the schools that are explaining to members what their retirement benefits are. We're also doing an asset liability study this year. We do that every 5 years to determine if we have the appropriate asset allocation. And then finally, we're also working on looking at some of our customer service standards, how they compare to other defined benefit plans our size. So we're happy that the board's keeping us busy with all of these strategic plan items. So thank you for the opportunity to speak to you this evening. We do have some time for questions.
Very good. Thank you so much. Ms. Corbett-Sanders?
Just a quick question. obviously this year's been tough on the fund, and we just had Brexit. Do you have, what percentage of the portfolio is internationally held, or assets that are international, and what percentage are at risk as a result of some of the of Brexit?
We do have about 20% in international, very small percent. The United Kingdom is a very small investment market, so very, very small market there. That did cause a great deal of market volatility after June 23rd, but it was, it was surprising that the market settled down after that, and July's actually been a very strong month. So our fiscal year number is coming in at negative 0.4%. We still have some real estate numbers, so we're hoping we get up to 0. The calendar year, though, we're up 3.1%. We do our valuation on a calendar year basis, so we're hoping if we double that and get a little bit more, we'll meet our 7% this year. So bottom line answer to your question, very little exposure to the United Kingdom.
Mr. Moon?
Thank you. Madam Chair, I wasn't sure whether this would be coming up in the next portion of tonight's work session, the retirement study follow-up, but I'm gonna take a risk and ask anyway, right? As a part of our continuing compensation study, the board has been has conducted a reviewing that there have been suggestions about looking at a possibility of maybe changing some of our pension plans. There were talk about that, whether that's feasible or what that really means. I know this is about ERFC, but for VRS, is it correct for me to say that VRS is statutorily mandated in Virginia? So unless there's a statutory change, there's nothing we can do about it.
That's correct.
And for ERFC, it's a supplementary. It's a Fairfax's own optional plan. Is that correct?
That's right.
Do we have a contractual obligations to existing participants? And if there is, what are those contractual obligations?
It's really a legal question. This school board has the ability to make amendments to the ERFC plan. So it was a school board decision to create ERFC 2001. And it would be within the school board's purview to make any changes to the current structure. Now, the impact on whether you could do that for new employees, whether those changes are possible for existing employees, that is a legal issue. VRS did set a precedent recently by enacting the new hybrid plan, and they made that plan applicable to new employees only.
So it would be, let's say that for the time being, if you were to make any change for the new employees under ERFC, or going to the extreme that new employees will not be able to participate the ERFC, then will there be any savings generated for a school system?
Yes, and we have some of those numbers that you asked for on May 12th. We have that for this evening in the second presentation.
Next session, okay.
Yes,
Then I'll
coming attractions.
I'll wait until next session.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I did have one question with your recommended rate of 6.4% from the current is 5.6%.
That's correct.
Can you tell us what that would mean for employees and what that would mean for us?
That is an increase of approximately $11 million.
$11 million
for us, for the system.
for the school system.
To go from 5.6% to 6.4%.
And would it have, but no impact on employee contributions?
Not if the current 3% was retained.
Okay, thank you. And seeing no other questions, I think we need to take a 5-minute break before going to the next work session, which will be managed by Mrs. Corbett Sanders and Ms. Hines. Thank you very much.
Thank You did good job. Think so? I talked quickly.
They're saving it all for the end.
We need one more? No, there's one there. We'll grab one. That was nice, John. That was good.
Thank you. That was easy. Just fast.
Where would you like me to sit?
Wherever, do you want to sit next to Jean, since you guys are going to be doing the presentations?
You're gonna sit there? Yeah. So if you touch my hand, I won't stop talking? No, I'm just joking.